We will bring up our Toastmaster for this evening, the future president of Maurice, to officiate this meeting. Mr. Maurice. Hopefully you can read the record.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. I will review the agenda. We've had the pledge given by Heather. We had club business given by our president, Lawrence. The grammarian is going to be Julius. And if you can, give us a brief overview of the grammarian plus the word of the day.
The job of the grammarian is to keep an account of errors and filler words, to acknowledge the correct uses of words and grammar, to keep count of how many times the word of the day is used. The word of the day is jobs worth. Definition of jobs worth is an informal definition. A person in a position of minor authority who invokes the letter of the law in order to avoid any action requiring initiative, cooperation, etc. The origin of the word is more than my jobs worth too. So we're looking for jobs worth.
Yeah, I love it.
So in order for me not to invoke the characteristics of jobs worth, I will continue on reviewing the agenda, and our timer will be Heather. And if you can, just give a brief overview of what the timer does.
The timer keeps track of the timings of all the speeches, including the table topics. For the normal speeches, there will be a green light at 5 minutes, an amber light at 6 minutes, and a red light at 7 minutes. And for the table topics, there will be a green light at 1 minute, a yellow light at 1.5 minutes, and a red light at 2 minutes.
And then our general evaluator will be JR, and he's also the first evaluator.
My job as general evaluator is to manage the evaluation portion of the meeting, which consists of our evaluation speeches, as well as the other evaluators, the sort, the grammarian, timer, the Toastmaster.
And our second evaluator will be Brett.
Yes, sir. I'm happy to be evaluating Mark DeVoe's speech tonight.
And our table topics master, if it's still in force, will be Lawrence.
Table topics are the wonderful little experience where everyone has a chance to be a spontaneous speaker, and I will have hopefully a very exciting table topics this evening.
At this time, without further ado, we will go into our first speech. And our first speaker for the evening is a person who's been a Toastmaster on and off for more than 20 years. And the title of his speech is Gun Control. And our first speaker would be Woody.
Okay, thank you. Well, the title of my speech is Gun Control. I'm going to talk a little bit about gun control. This is a touchy subject because people have strong emotions both ways. But let's face it, we live in a very violent society. In 2015, for the first time in history, we had more gun deaths, people who died as a result from firearms, than we did from traffic fatalities. And that number is around 33,000. Now 33,000 is a lot of people to die from firearms, as you may well know. So literally, every year, thousands upon thousands of Americans die because of gun violence. I'm going to give you just a few statistics here. 42% of Americans will be the victim of a violent, completed crime. In other words, they will be attacked in some form or another. 83% of Americans will be the victim of an attempted or completed violent crime. That's a lot of people. We're talking 83%. Now, a completed violent crime is, of course, you know, somebody attempting to rob you and they rob you. An uncompleted crime is they attempt to rob you and you're not robbed. So 52% of Americans will be a victim of a violent crime more than once in their lifetime. That's a lot of people. In the U.S., we own over 300 million firearms. That's almost one firearm for every man, woman, and child in this country. That's a lot of weapons. Now, I'm not a person who's against people owning guns. Absolutely not. I own a couple of guns myself. I keep them in the house. I keep them unloaded because sometimes there's children there, and I never want to take the risk of, you know, a child getting their hand on a gun. I know people who have loaded guns in their house and they're not restricted by, you know, safe or anything like that. I disagree with that. I think if you have a loaded gun in your house, it should be locked up. But, and I don't take guns out in public. The only time I would take a gun out in public would be maybe to go to a gun range or something like that. Now, we've all seen the news recently about the mass shootings that we've seen in this country, and they seem to be occurring with more and more frequency. One of the worst to me was the mass shooting of children in Sandy Hook Elementary School. That's been a couple of years ago. That was a terrible incident. I don't remember the exact numbers. I think something like 20-something young children died. The other example I had was the example of the mass shooting in Colorado in the theater where some young man came in there and he killed, I don't remember the number there either. And I actually wrote this speech before what happened this weekend. What happened this weekend was the worst mass shooting in the history of the United States, where I think the number is 49 people were killed and somewhere in the number, around the number of 50-something people were injured. It was a incident where a young man who apparently had ties to ISIS, and it was a terrorist attack certainly, but it was also an attack against, obviously, against gay people. For some reason, the members of ISIS, they particularly don't like gay people. But I want to give you a couple of things here. I don't know of one single example where a private citizen has used their own private weapon to stop one of these mass shootings. If it's happened, I don't know of it happening. Now, you might think in the wake of all these mass shootings that we could at least pass some legislation to restrict the use of assault weapons. Okay, an assault weapon is an AR-15 or an AK-47. These weapons are designed for one thing. They're designed for killing people. They're not designed for hunting. They're not designed for anything but killing people. And the clips that you put on these guns can range anywhere from 15 rounds to 50 rounds, and they're just tailor-made for killing a lot of people. Now, what's been happening, you'd think that we could pass some legislation to at least restrict those types of weapons, but you'd be wrong. Quite the opposite is occurring. We're now seeing laws passed in some states that are allowing people to carry weapons to their cars, to school, to work. Some people are even proposing that teachers do this, carry a firearm into school. You know what would happen there. so anyway, I don't agree with Barack Obama on everything, but when it comes to gun control, he's absolutely right. We've got to do something about this problem in this country. And in my opinion, I know there's a lot of people who say, well, if you take hands out of the guns of innocent people, the only people that will have guns are the criminals. And I'm not saying take the guns out of everyone's hands. What I'm saying is some particular types of weapons need to be outlawed altogether. They're just too dangerous. Now, you think, who's winning this debate? Well, it's quite obvious who's winning the debate at this time. The side that's proposing more weapons in the hands of more people, more open access, and easier access to guns, and the ability to carry guns in any place you want. and this is happening more and more, that side's obviously winning. Now, who's gonna pay the price for more guns on the streets? Unfortunately, we all are. And you know, I don't know if you guys watch the news much, but they had a couple of young kids at Bel Air Mall the other day. These kids couldn't have been much older than 13, 14 years old. They're running across the parking lot, and you ask yourself, how do these kids have guns? Well, they're easy to get. They can buy them out on the street for 20, 25 bucks. Kids walking around with a 9mm. Somebody mouths off to them, they shoot. You know, I mean, it's insane. Now, I don't know what it's going to take before we see some sensible gun control, and I don't know that we ever will, because on the one hand you have the NRA, and they're against any type of gun control whatsoever, and it appears that at this point they've got the advantage. But one thing I think is for sure, that if we don't do something in the next immediate future, that many more people will suffer, and we will see people continue to die from this needlessly. And I'm not saying that all handguns or all guns should be restricted, but we could at least ban the sale of these terrible weapons that are causing well, not called, they don't actually cause these things to happen, but we've got a lot of people running around who are mentally unstable. When they get their hands on an assault weapon, what you see is the kind of thing we saw this weekend in Orlando. So my proposal is I hope a lot more people will maybe get on board and say, let's at least ban this type of weapon and make the society at least a little safer. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you for that speech, Woody. Our second speaker has been a Toastmaster also for a number of years, I assume. And the title of his speech is Things Can't Get Worse. So our second speaker for tonight is Mark.
I hate the term, things can't get any worse than this. 21 years ago on Father's Day, my wife came home for our second child. She had a very long labor, and after 4 hours that she cares to remember, the doctor decided to have a C-section. And the doctor and my wife went in the operating room during the C-section. And that's a horrible feeling, to be there with your wife and your unborn child, knowing that they're about to cut open your wife. And there's a lot of blood. When we got through, I didn't think things could get any worse than that. Our baby boy was born. He was a very healthy 9-pound baby with a big set of lungs on him. He started crying like Maline. But then he started turning blue. And the doctors and nurses were rushing around. They wouldn't tell us what was going on. They took the baby away. They came back and said that they think there's a problem with the arteries around the heart. And so the doctor correctly diagnosed that our son had transposition of the greater artery and administered a drug that kept a temporary artery, a transposition of the greater artery, or TGA, is where the plumbing on the heart is wrong. So one side of the heart takes the bad blood from the body, and it's supposed to send it to the lungs, and then from the lungs it comes into the other side of the heart, and then goes back to the body. Well, in transposition of the greater artery, they get swapped. So you have bad blood coming from one side of the heart, and then going out back to the body. And on the other side of the heart, you've got blood that has oxygen getting pulled in from the lungs and then sent right back out to the lungs. And when you're born, everybody has an artery that connects those two arteries. And so the doctor started administering a drug that kept it open. Naturally, within a day, that artery is supposed to close up and actually disappear. They transferred my son to the USA hospital, and this was late at night, and they didn't really tell me where to go. I waited in a dark hallway by myself, just waiting to hear. Things can't get any worse than this. Remember, this was 21 years ago, but I had a bag that I had jury rigged up to my camcorder battery so I could actually use it in that dark hallway. And so I called my dad and other people, and I couldn't explain anything to anybody about what was going on, but it was common for me. Then the battery, things can't get any worse than this. So there I am alone, not knowing what went on, until finally the cardiologist came in and explained that he had done some tests and he confirmed that my son had TPA, and that the best pediatric surgeon was in Atlanta. So we chartered a jet to get my son up to Atlanta, Eggleston Hospital. And I thought things were getting better, but then they told me, well, you can't fly on the plane. So forget about the fact that it's cost me $20,000, they're not gonna let me on this plane. So I have to drive by myself in the middle of the night. Normally it takes 6 hours. I think it took about 3 hours for me to make the trip. I don't remember anything on the trip other than leaving Mobile and arriving in Atlanta. To find my son by himself, hooked up to a lot of tubes. Wasn't much I could do but go out in the waiting room where there's other parents there. And they'd set up this sofa city. And it turns out they set up the sofa city every night. And they just turn the sofas into beds. And the nurses will bring blankets out to the parents and just spend the night on sofas. Can't get any worse than that. So, if you remember, my wife had a C-section, and she didn't come with me originally. My mother-in-law took her up a day or so later, and then we scheduled the surgery. And the surgery is supposed to switch the artery so the blood starts going in the right direction. We both overslept, and we were actually staying at the Ronald McDonald house nearby. We both overslept. I did something that my wife will never forgive me for, but I just left her there and drove to the hospital because our son was going into surgery that moment and she wasn't able to move that quickly. So she walked after a C-section 3 miles to the hospital. That's something she still comes up. Things can't get any worse. He went through the surgery. It seemed okay. But then it started going bad. He was in recovery. And there were several nights it was okay, but one night, I left the Sofa City and went into the room with him, and there were two doctors there, and they were very concerned with him. They were actually drawing blood out of my son and just squirting it into the trash can next to him. And there was so much fluid buildup that that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to reduce the fluid by removing blood. There's actually an oxygen meter hooked to my son that a normal person breathes 100%, so it doesn't have normal oxygen. That never shut going down into 50, 30. The doctors finally told us that, hey, you probably ought to get your wife in here. And so on July 4th, so just a month later, my wife got to hold her son for the first time as he took his last breath. And things can't get any worse than that. And that's why I hate that phrase. And I don't use it except when I'm telling this story. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for that touching speech. And at this time, we'll go into our table topics. And our table topics master for tonight will be Lawrence Crompton.
Good evening, good evening. Tonight, for table topics, I'm going to do something a little bit interesting. Now, one thing that I originally was thinking about doing my table topics on was misdirection. The greatest tool of propaganda is misdirection. So they want you not to think about this, so they tell you about that. And so then you ignore what you need to know in order to deal with what they're telling you. But I decided maybe there's another way of doing such a thing. And so what I decided was that I have this nice little package here with various different things in it. And what I want you to do when you come up to do your table topics, I would like you to pick one thing out of this package or out of this bag, and then without letting anyone see it, I want you to describe it in such a way that everybody will understand what it is. And then we'll see how many people can guess what it is at the end of your speech. So, I don't know which side to start on. Maybe Woody gave a speech, so we'll start on this side. So, Miss Heather, if you'll just sneak something out of here and try to describe what it is and see if we can figure it out.
What I have in front of me is what a lot of people would probably call an action figure, and it's from a popular show. It's, if you're familiar with anime or manga, it often plays like on Saturdays in the morning on this channel that pretty much everybody has. It's like basic cable. The character that is this action figure or toy has pretty spiky hair and some boots, and I think that his outfit is normally like orange. The show that he's in, the name of the show that he's in has the word of a mythical creature that is pretty much associated with medieval times. And in the show, I don't know a lot about the show, but in the show, apparently like these people are training in martial arts and stuff, and they're searching for these items that will grant them wishes or something. And each of these items has a different number of stars, I think, or something like that. And they can travel from different planets and everything. And
Dragon Ball Z.
yes, that's it. That's what it looks like. So, yeah.
All right. Okay, and Brett, I guess we're going to let you be next.
Good evening, Toastmasters. I have no idea what this is. I've never seen this before in my life. So this is probably something that's unusual. How much can I say? It's kind of like...
Just kind of describe it.
So no proper nouns that I can do it?
This is kind of like that game charades, actually. So you can imagine that this particular item normally is tossed from one person to another, but in this particular case, it actually can motivate and get there by itself without being tossed. Yeah, this item is it's spherical. It is probably full of hot air, but not necessarily. It might be full of cold air. Anyway, this item has wings. I don't know much more what I can say about this item. I've never seen this before in my life, so please imagine something that you haven't seen before. Maybe you have seen it, I guess, but
So like something that's real or something that comes in a movie or something?
you know, I guess I would have to say that this probably came from some cartoon show or something like this.
Because I was thinking that thing in Harry Potter. I never played Quidditch. And
Yeah.
You know, I'm a bit at a disadvantage because, you know, I'm probably the only person in the world that has never seen Harry Potter.
It's two.
Okay, show them what it is.
I think you're right.
It's the golden kibbage. All right, Julius. You get one or two things. Two. Okay. Back
This is gonna be fellow Toastmasters and other guests. This is gonna be a real easy task. It has 4 wheels.
Car.
Okay. But not just any car. It's
1965 Mustang, red.
not quite. It's a lot to do with love.
Limousine?
And in the summertime, sometimes it can bite you. Now we put those together and come up with
Love bug?
Oh.
I think we, what time we got? Quarter till. I think that's going to have to be the end of our evening, but I did have a couple of other things that I thought might be interesting. I got a little can opener that's shaped like a shark. And then I have a few, like beads and such like that. But pretty much, you guys picked out the most interesting stuff. So, Mr. Toastmaster.
At this time, we'll go into our evaluation period. And I will ask the general evaluator, JR, to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I'll begin the evaluation portion of the meeting with an evaluation of Woody's speech called Gun Control. First of all, Woody, I want to thank you for taking this speech since it was improvised, you didn't have time to prepare. But I think considering that, you did a great job of it. You started off with an intro that honestly I thought was a little weak that could improve. You said the title of my speech is Gun Control. I think there are a lot of ways you can try to grab the audience's attention instead of just kind of leading us there. So slowly. I'd like to open with statistics. Some very powerful ones. Number of Americans who've been engaged in violent crime, will be engaged in multiple violent crimes. These are extremely powerful statistics. I don't think a lot of us knew. And there's a few things concerning your conduct toward the audience I think you can improve on. First of all, you had a habit of looking at your notes a fair amount, which I understand is necessary, but you also look at the wall quite a bit instead of looking at the audience and looking in their eyes. Also, your hand gestures were a little bit repetitive. I saw you doing this a lot. It's hard to think of appropriate hand gestures for a gun speech, but I think you could probably still kind of make it a little more emphatic, perhaps, to use your hands to underline main points instead of just repeating yourself. I thought your content was excellent. You mentioned stats, your personal views, and also an overview of how the nation viewed guns right now, and kind of an ending appeal. But I think you could have done a better job of outlining your speech and letting us know what the next step is, what the focus of each part of your speech is. One thing I think that was excellent about your speech was you had very evident conviction. You clearly cared about the speech, but you also didn't come across as being too self-righteous or abrasive. It was clear you were mentioning this because you thought it was important and you wanted to save lives, not because you were trying to just prove a point. So overall, I learned a lot in the speech. I think it's a very germane issue to bring up right now, and I'm glad you gave it for your next one. Our next evaluator will be Brett Duncan, and he is evaluating Mark DeVoe's speech.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, I'd like to evaluate Mark DeVoe's speech tonight, which was called Things Can't Get Any Worse. And the evaluation is basically following the guide that's in the book Competent Communicator from the fourth speech. First topic is, was the speech topic appropriate for this particular assignment? And I said yes, that the speech topic was excellent. Did the speaker use simple, short, and clear words? The answer is yes. Excellent. Did the speaker use vivid, descriptive words and creative mental images? I thought this was especially excellent. I thought that Mark did a very good job in painting a visual picture that was very easy for us to understand. Number 4, did the speaker use words that had more than one meaning or were inaccurate? I did not notice particularly any great amount of words, one way or the other. I put satisfactory that I thought that Mark's speech, met this requirement. Were the speaker's sentences short, simple, and understandable? Yes, they were excellent. Did the speaker use rhetorical devices to enhance his or her ideas? Yes. I don't think I realized exactly what the speech was about until the very end. But it actually was very impactful, the use of the rhetorical device. Things can't get any worse. Did the speaker avoid jargon and unnecessary words? I think that the speaker did a good job there. Did the speaker use proper grammar and pronunciation? Yes, excellent. Was the speech purpose clear? This was a little bit unclear for me. While I was listening, I was thinking, you know, what we're actually taught in Toastmasters is to, number one, start to say with your speech what I'm going to tell the audience, tell them, and then finish up and tell them what you told them. And I kept thinking, hey, Mark is not really telling us what he's telling us. So I felt that, you know, I was a little bit concerned about this. But in actual fact, when Mark finally, you know, made his final comments, it was very impactful. And I thought that in this particular case, the use of not, you know, going through that was really what really made the speech stand out and be exemplary. Was the purpose of the speech clear? Yes. Effectively organized? Yes. What did I like? What I really liked was I'd never heard the term TGA before. And I like when, you know, Mark could speak in a personal story that helped us to understand what TGA actually means. Myself, I had some affinity for what Mark was saying. My daughter was born with something called synetosis. And when she was 1 month old, I had to have some, actual fact, brain surgeries performed by a neurosurgeon. So anyway, I personally could really relate to Mark's story. What I liked about it was the explanation of TGA, personal storytelling, what could be done different. The only thing I could say is that Mark could have used the word of the day.
All right, thank you, Brett. At this point, let's move on to the next part of the evaluations. So can we have a time report, please, from Heather?
The first speech, Woody's speech, was 8 minutes. The second speech by Mark was 9 minutes and 25 seconds. For our table topics, I had my table topic at 1 minute and 34 seconds. Brett's table topic was 1 minute and 30 seconds, and Julia's was 37 seconds. And then for the general evaluations, the first evaluation by JR was 1 minute and 51 seconds, and the second evaluation was 3 minutes and 29 seconds.
Thanks. Can we have a grammarians report, please?
The marriage report. This is Woody. I had Woody down for a couple of you-knows, a couple of double clutches at the and it's. Mark, a couple of and-ofs. Heather, a few times, and an and-off. Brett, you use you know several times. Nothing for JR, nothing for Lawrence, and everybody else is pretty good. The word of the day was used once by Maurice. That was at the beginning of the presentation.
All right, thank you, Julius. And with that, I'll give a very quick overview of the meeting since we only have 5 minutes left. I wanted to thank our speakers. We had two very serious speeches. I think they were both very well done. Woody did a great job of bringing up a tough issue that raises a lot of emotions in a way that was respectful. And thank you for sharing that story, Mark. That was really powerful. Also, Lawrence, those are great little topic questions. If I'm going to do that again, that was very creative. I think it's very unconventional in a good way. So those are the main things I noticed. So I'd like to turn control of the meeting back to our Toastmaster.
I realize we're running short on time. If we don't have time to do an educational overview, I will relinquish the lectern back to the president.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Mark, would you like to give us some information about what we've got going for next week's agenda?
Next week's agenda, Julius will be our Toastmaster. I'm going to give a speech out of the Communicating on Video, which is instructing on the internet. So I'm going to ask that anybody that has a device that can be on the Google Plus Hangout, if you could bring that to the next meeting, because it's supposed to be instructing over the internet. So that'll help me out if you can bring in devices and try and connect to the meeting during the meeting.
Could you send that out in an email too, please?
I can do that. Cammie is scheduled to give her third speech out of the company communicator manual. Woody will be our general evaluator. Edric will be the reserve speaker. Brett will be the table topic master. And that's
All right. So that is the, all right, now I do have some booklets that talk about the various different positions. I know I sent out an email, I don't know who all got it, I have to update my my mass mail program and make sure that everybody gets in there. And but I do have the books that give you the roles and what are the responsibilities of those who take the roles. So if you have volunteered yourself as one of those lucky few people who can be leaders at Toastmasters, then please look at these books. Now, you came in late. I'm sorry, I don't recognize.
I'm Norman.
Norman?
Yeah,
Have you been here before?
I've never done a Toastmasters. So.
You've never been to Toastmasters. Well, we'd like to very much welcome you to Toastmasters. You kind of came in late, so we didn't have a time to greet you properly. I do hope that you have a minute and you'll stay behind. We'll have a chance to catch up a little bit. So what did you think about our meeting, what you saw of it?
Yeah, I like it.
You liked it?
Yes.
Good, good. Well, I hope you will come back next week and try us out again, and maybe we'll be a little bit more hospitable. We do try to get here at 7 o'clock, and if you come, you can also tell them downstairs, and you can get a free cup of whatever you want, tea or coffee, or so. Yes, ma'am. Did you have a question? Or are you just, yes? I thought, oh, you were just waving. It's all good. Okay, is there anything else that we have for the meeting this evening? Yes, sir.
I looked at lecterns. I found a model that might do this nicely. It's a tabletop model, $65, 19 inches tall. So do you want to look that over first, or do you want to just go ahead and propose it and buy it? What do y'all think?
You have a picture up there?
I do, yeah. So it's mounting that table right there. And I think 19 inches ought to be tall enough.
19 inches, so that's going to be
Paper's about 11
18,
inches.
so that's about
2
18
sheets of paper.
inches. That's about 18 inches
Okay.
right there.
Yeah.
Okay? At least I used to have a 9-inch finger span.
Okay.
I'm a sailor, I gotta know.
Are there any
how
other,
long
is there
things
taller
are,
choice,
so
or is that
measure 1 inch.
I don't believe
9
so.
inches.
Most of the ones I found were actually shorter.
Okay, can you,
I make a motion that we
that we purchase this?
purchase that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to purchase a new lectern that stands 19 inches tall, tabletop model.
Second motion.
I have a second on that motion. Julius made a second on that motion. All in favor of purchasing this new lectern? All opposed? Okay, well, you can make arrangements to purchase it. I guess it's going to be going to Julius's house. I think he's the one that's got, unless you change the address on it and get it to you, come to yours. That might be better that way. I don't know. I think that our website is still on Julius's name.
This is through Amazon.
Oh, okay, so you can have it sent anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, just get it, bring it here when you get it.
Okay.
Okay, good enough. Is there anything else? Okay.
If there's a minute left, if we could do it this meeting or next meeting, make a motion whether to keep the lectern here or with one of the officers.
Okay, we'll deal with that when we get it.
Okay.
And normally that goes with the sergeant at arms.
Okay.
Is usually who takes care of all of that kind of stuff.
Okay, all right.
One final note, it's actually a folding lectern, so it can be transported easily.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, they fold up. Okay, anything else for the good of the meeting? Going once, going twice, going a minute over.